Welcome back to the boat, Nick. This morning I'm out here piddling on a Montgomery 17, and one of the things that I've noticed, this is the second one I've had, and on both boats the mainsail, the leech of the mainsail or the roach of the mainsail has a tendency to touch on the backstay if you're not real careful. And so what I've done here, I've just made up a little extension on my masthead casting here, and I just extended from where the backstay pin was here. You see that there? I just shifted it back 4 inches, and where I can get just a little bit more clearance on that backstay without having to make new sails. I've got 2 mainsails for this boat, and they both have a tendency to just barely touch that backstay, in which, you know, you do that 2 or 3 times and you've basically ruined a sail. So I just took some scrap aluminum and made up a little extension there. I didn't have to drill any new holes. This is the pivot point for the mast sheaves here, and I just took that pin out and put a solid shaft through bolt through there, and then used a lock nut on it, and then this was where the pin for the original location of the backstay was at, and I just put a bolt through that too. So this extension is made so that I can remove it, and then this hole here was where there was a wind indicator on top of the mast, and so I just used that same hole and put a third bolt here. So using existing holes, and it's removable, so that if it doesn't work like I think and hope it will, then I can take it off, or if I need to modify it and change it. But anyway, you can kind of just see there, it's just because it's going to the outside here, I let it taper in a bit to get back to the proper width and on the interior here for that toggle there. I know I'm not the first person to do this. I know many people have done this. I've seen it done on a lot of different sailboats over the years, so it's not a new concept by no stretch. You can actually even buy these extensions made out of thin stainless steel to bolt on, but I just made that up out of some scraps I had here. So that's what I'm gonna try to do. Anyway, I hope it works, and if it doesn't, no big loss. I'll just take it back off. That backstay from here to here. Now I know that the torque and everything on that masthead is going to be drastically different now, but I think I'm engineered enough to where it won't be a problem. So anyway, we'll see. We'll just see here. Like I said, I know you can buy extensions like this that slide in and bolt on. This one is made out of an old masthead casting that I just, you know, cut and reshaped and then welded together there. that's my trusty mast raising system here that works really good. I use it on this boat and similar size boats, and I made it specifically for my Com-Pac 23. It works really good with that. Yeah, you probably can't see much, but there's that mast extension. Put it on the top of the mast. See if I can hold the camera still enough. Okay, that's with my loose-footed mainsail up. This one's got a double reef in it, and it's got a bit of roach in it, and it's got a place up there that I'm going to have to patch because it's been hitting the backstay. The sail itself is in pretty good shape other than that one spot where it's drug the backstay a time or two. And so moving that backstay out at the top, I don't know whether you can follow it up there or not, but it gives me clearance. So now I've got, in the worst case scenario, I've probably got ½ inch clearance or maybe a little better. So now when I tack, it should be okay. It's kind of hard to tell the sun straight up there, but anyway, I think it'll work. I made up a little backstay tensioner here out of some stuff I had laying around the shop. This was broken here. The springs were broken in it, in that little cam cleat, and I just switched it out to another one that I had that's a little bit bigger, but it still worked. I just had to flare those up open just a little bit right there, but it works fine. And I used a bolt that was coming through already, had some threads coming through from a little boarding ladder that's on the outside, so I just mounted it right there on that little ring to start with. And again, just using up some random stuff I had laying around the shop. That stainless D-ring right there came off of an inflatable that was no more good, and I just saved all the hardware off of it, so I had a half a dozen or so of these D-rings, and so that worked out good for that. Those come off on an old sailboat that's got scrap for the lead. These open up, those sheet blocks, I think they're called. They'll pop open where you can get them around the stays there. And just a piece of line I had, so it works fine. It's not elegant, it's not new, nothing like that, but it gets the job done, and you know, didn't have to pay any money and didn't have to buy anything. You know, just trying to get this 77 Montgomery 17 at least where I can get it out on the water and sail it some, and then once I get out and use it some, then I'll kind of figure out what I want to do with it as far as, you know, long term, whether it's to paint it or, you know, restore it, or, you know, keep it as is for me, or sell it as is, or what I'm gonna do with it. But that gets the job done. And I need a boom vane, and I've got one here that'll work fine. It came off of a little bit bigger boat, but it'll work fine. I need to put a new line in it, or at least wash that one. It may be okay if I wash it. It's just covered with dust. But I'm gonna use that on here for a vane. I took those lines off this Montgomery 17 and put them in a mesh bag and ran them through the wash machine just to see how they turn out. You never know. Sometimes old lines are actually just dirty and not rotten. You know, they're actually good. And I put them in a mesh bag and run them through the wash machine and see how they turn out here. And they're actually not too bad. That's that line that was on the boom vane right there. And I use fabric softener in it too, and so now it's just a nice soft line. It's a bit worn, but it's very, very usable for what it is. That's the main sheet there, the one with a little bit of green in it, is the main sheet, and this feels good. Came out fairly clean. They're usable. They're usable. One thing I'm working on here this morning, I'm putting some larger cleats on my mast here. These are just way too little. They were already on that mast when I put it on this boat. They're too little, so I'm gonna put these on there, and I'm drilling and tapping the holes and using threaded bolts instead of screws, and I'm gonna set them in there with some blue Loctite. Okay, so I've got those two cleats from halyards installed. I'm missing a cleat right here on my boom, which would be for my reefing lines. So I can see where there was one mounted there. So I measured those center lines on those holes. I'm gonna see if I can scrounge up a cleat that'll match those holes so I don't have to drill new holes in that boom if possible. And I think I'm gonna remove these two blocks that are kind of redundant. I'm not seeing needing those. But I can always put them back on if I need them. But I don't think I'm gonna need them. And I've got to drill a hole. I've got to drill a hole in this stainless triangle right here so that I can put a little short lanyard to support the end of my boom when I'm not sailing, where I can just hook it straight up to there, and that will suffice instead of a topping lift. I may put a topping lift on it eventually, but that actually works pretty good doing like that right there. So I'm going to try to drill it right there where it's at and not take it apart, but I may end up having to run a halyard down here and disconnecting my backstay, and we'll see. I'm going to try to drill it where it's at. Well, I started out with a small bit and got a hole through it, and now I'm just enlarging it a little bit at a time until I get it big enough to put a pin through. It's really hard drilling through stainless, especially when you don't have a way to clamp it good. I folded up a paper towel, put around my vice grips there, but it's still kind of floating in midair, so kind of hard to do, but I like to get it. And it's getting so hot. This is maybe the last thing I do for the day out here. It's hot outside. So I got my 1/4-inch hole drilled, and then I just took a 1/2-inch bit and hit both sides of it briefly just to deburr it, to get rid of those sharp burrs. Mounted a whisker pole bracket here on the front of the mast, and it doubles as a place to have my halyards when they're not being used. Just trying to get a few little odds and ends like that done. I think the next thing I'm gonna do is put a hasp on my hatch board so I can lock those up. Well, I'm installing a new latch or hasp on this hatch here on this Montgomery 17, and I took the old that one was turned the wrong way, so it wouldn't work no matter what you did. It was turned wrong. But anyway, I took that off and just tried to reuse the old holes, which was pretty successful. I had to wallow them out just a tiny bit, put through bolts. But one little trick that most of you probably know, but some of you may not know, is to, well, a couple things. First of all, I put a back-to-back hasp piece here. That way I've got something from the inside where I can put a little lanyard in it to grab the open and close the hatch from inside the boat. That acts as a backer plate to reinforce the area. And then the other thing is to use longer screws or bolts than you need. Instead of trying to figure out exactly what little short length you need and all that, or trying to cut them off with a grinder or whatever, just use a longer bolt. That's an inch or so longer, and then you can just take and bend it back and forth a couple of times and break it off, and it breaks off just about flush with the nut most of the time. Can't do this while I'm holding the phone,
but it acts as a kind of like a locking, so that the nut can't back off as well, because it bends the threads right on the back side of the nut. And you can just use a regular nut instead of a nylock nut if you want to. Anyway, it's easy to do when you got two hands. Anyway, it breaks off just in front of the nut, and it gives just a little bit of a bend in the thread where the nut won't come off. You can get it off with with wrenches or whatever, but they don't just come off by themselves. They won't vibrate. So anyway, there it is, with the backer on it, and with the place there where I can hook something to it to slide the hatch up and close. And then there's the rest of it installed. It's just, again, secondhand salvaged parts. But honestly, sometimes I like used parts on older boats rather than putting brand new shiny stuff on it, Just doesn't quite fit the character of the boat sometimes. But anyway, this is chrome plated brass or bronze, I'm not sure which. But you can see in a place or two where the chrome is worn off. It's either brass or bronze. But one thing about putting on these hasps like this is one place you don't want to use oval head screws. You want to use flat head screws, because if you use with the oval heads, it interferes with the being able to close good unless you bend it or something. So I use a lot of oval head screws, but this is one place I definitely use the flat head screws. On the back of these where I broke the bolts off, I just took a flat file and fitted a couple of licks to get rid of any little burr there where that bolt broke off. Since these are handled a lot and get laid on top of cushions or whatever, I just want to make sure they were smooth. It usually just takes 3 or 4 passes with the file, and it knocks it right down. And you can see there where I put some backers. I just had a couple of little stainless plates that worked out perfect, so I use those for my backers. And yeah, my pants are wet from sweat. It is another hot day. A hot day. I make it till about lunchtime, and that's about as far as I can go.